Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a project I've postponed for some time now. I have two Daiwa BG90s. They're among the earliest of the BG series, and neither of them work. And I've had them set aside in my shop for some time, and I was just going through some things looking for parts. I said, geez, I haven't worked on this one in a very long time. Let me see if I can't do that now and try and get one of these a second chance. So the first one, it's missing the bail assembly. It's got some broken pieces and parts on it. It doesn't work. You can see there's no oscillation in the spool, but it does have some cosmetics and the like that seem to be better than the reel that I hope to restore. The reel that I hope to restore is also the BG90. It's got a lot of corrosion and dings and the like on the handle. This handle on this reel is much better. This reel is stuck. It doesn't move that well. Every now and then I seem to get some reaction out of it, but I think this one is grease choked. But the good news is I've probably got the right amount of pieces and parts between the two of these to make one of them work. I'm going to choose this one, and we're going to see if we can give this one a second chance. Well, to do that, we're going to start by taking the reel apart and figuring out what's going on in this reel, if it truly is just grease or if there's more going on to it than that. We'll clean it up, we'll service it, and we'll change out the handle, and if we need any other parts, we'll go into that second reel for the parts. If you enjoy these types of videos, I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting videos, and well, you can make a determination as to whether that's a video you want to see. You can see here that this reel's got a lot of dirt and grease and junk on it, on the spool, and this may not even come off easily. Yeah, I'm not seeing it coming off because it looks like we kind of got a lot of embedded dirt and the like there. We'll deal with that by taking the axle shaft off, and then we'll come back and clean that up and see if we can't get that freed up. Well, when you have a reel like this, turn the reel and see if the back end is turning, the cap. If it's not turning, it generally means that you have a screw-on handle that's seated in the main gear. However, some of these reels do use a screw to attach the handle underneath, and in this case that's what we have. So always check that that side, non-handle side, to see if there's a screw under that cap before you start unscrewing or trying to unscrew the handle. If you don't check it, what's going to happen is that you're going to find yourself in a situation where you break the handle, or you break the main gear, or you break something else. So as a general rule of thumb, particularly on these larger, older reels, I always check the back side of this. Interestingly enough, Daiwa's somewhat continued that with the current BG series. I just worked on a BG 3500, and what they did there is they don't have a screw holding this side, but they do have a little clip that sits on the shaft of the main gear. And boy, you want to talk about something that's a little bit of an adventure to get out, that would be it. All right, I'm trying to get this little stud out. We don't need to, it'll come out the other way. Let's see if we can pull the handle out then. We can. We can poke that little piece through now. That's just the piece that sits in, helps that screw hold to the main gear. When I take my pieces and parts off, I like to put them into a parts tray. That way I know where those pieces and parts are when it comes time to reinstall. That's my handle screw. And one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that you know where your pieces and parts are, so that you, well, you're not searching for them when it's time to put them back together again. What I choose to do on that handle screw is to take advantage of the handle shaft, put it right back in there, and that way when it's time to reinstall, even though we're going to try and swap out to the other one, you'll know where it is. And even if the only thing I use from that other reel is a handle, well, I'll reinstall this one back on that reel, and if someone comes in with a need for a handle. Even though it's not in the best condition, it's better than a reel that's missing the handle. We'll have that set aside in that little parts bin there. There's 3 screws that hold the side plate on. I'm using a Phillips head screwdriver to remove them. You could use a flat-bladed screwdriver here because there is a through slot on these. So don't be afraid to go switch over if you're not getting the right grip with that one. Let's take that side plate off and let's see what's going on. Very interesting. I thought it would be grease choked. It's the opposite. There is no grease. Well, let's turn this and make sure everything is working on this. Well, it is. It seems to be. So this one's actually one that is failing because of lack of grease rather than too much grease. Very interesting. I'm going to spin it so that the crosswind block goes all the way to the bottom. And then I can remove that crosswind block screw. And then I should be able to pull up and out to get the axle shaft. And boy, there's a lot of grease on that axle shaft out. Now remember what we said, we're going to try and deal with this by having this removed now. And there's 2 things you can do. You can either try to push it through. I'm going to remove this clip here that's holding the drag stack in. I'm thinking at this point what we probably have is drags that have sort of sealed themselves to the axle shaft here. And this is another one I want to check. When we get done, we may have a bent axle shaft here, for example. And I do know I have an axle shaft on this one, even though it's not going up and down. There should be an axle shaft there. Well, one of the ways to try and move this is simply invert the reel and put pressure on it. Put my full weight on there. No, that's not going anywhere. So one of the things I'm going to do right now, since this has a lot of dirt on it, I'm going to take this to my ultrasonic bath. I'm going to clean all of this up, and then we'll see if we can start to move some of these metal washers out of here after the vibration is done. And that's probably what's holding the pieces on at the moment. And well, we'll get back to this one as we go about servicing the other reel. Right now, for a moment, I'm going to shut it off so that I can go put this in the ultrasonic bath, and then we'll be right back. Okay, we can continue while that's going to wash itself away. I just have one of these basic ultrasonic baths. I think I got it on Amazon for, I think it's a 2-liter, and it's only it was only around $65 or something. I use it for something like that, where it's just it's more than just a cosmetic cleaning. That's something deep going on inside that channel there. And well, it's hands-free, right? I can continue to do this stuff while the ultrasonic machine is running. Some folks ask what I use inside the machine. I just usually use simply water. Sometimes I'll use a dish detergent, but I don't get any more aggressive than that with the cleaners. I rely on those sonic waves to kind of shake the greases and dirts free. All right, we cleaned up the crosswind block. That goes into my parts tray. With the axle shaft and the crosswind block out, we should be able to remove the main gear. And the bearing is holding this in at the moment, I think. Let's see what's going on there. Bearing's out. Yeah, the back bearing is holding this in at the moment. So I'm going to see if I can't just put a little screwdriver in there or something to kind of help move that out. Now on a reel this age with one that hasn't been performing well, it may be time to consider replacing those bearings. We'll give it a try. There we go. Okay. This one, we can test them. Yeah, well, that one's doing fine. That's actually in good condition. Same with this one. So even though we might want to consider it, we don't need to. All right, let's just clean those up. I'm going to use penetrating oil. We'll oil that bearing. I don't rely on a penetrating oil as a lubricant, but I do rely on it to kind of degrease and get some of the old stuff off of that. This one actually looks like it may have been replaced at one point because it's got a shield, looks like a shield on the side. Interesting. So somebody may have taken care to take care of this reel. Got it on both sides. They don't look like the original bearings. All right, we've got the main gear out. Again, this is bone dry and it's shellacked. And it's shellacked on one half of the reel. Interesting. So if you're going to look for what happens to reels and the like, this is probably one that got stuck, literally stuck, in storage. So what happens when you go to store a reel, if this one was stored kind of leaning down, well, all of the greases and lubrication is going to work with gravity to find the lowest point. So if there was grease on the teeth of this gear, well, it was probably the fishing reel was probably stored where the gear was like that. It all seeped down and ran off. Some of it puddled into the teeth. A lot of it evaporated. So that may say, if it's evaporated, that it was being stored in a warm place. And when I tell folks what to do with their reels in the wintertime, when they were off season, let's go that way, off season, I always tell them to find a cool, dry place to store your reels, and be aware of how you're storing them. You might use a vertical rod rack or a horizontal rod rack. That really doesn't matter too much, but understand that over time, gravity will pull lubrication off your reel and put it in places that, well, the lubrication isn't going to be effective, and in some cases it can actually jam the reel. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing here. I did a pretty good cleaning on this, but because it's kind of as dry as it is, I'm just going to flood it with the penetrating oil. Sit that off to the side and let the penetrating oil do its work. Here's our case then. We got one more piece here. That piece is the oscillation gear. And you can see why people like this reel so much. This reel is made of high quality materials. This may be a stainless gear, kind of looks that way. And well, as somebody said in the comments section on an earlier post that I did on the BG90, this reel will be fishing long after the modern or contemporary reels have been given up. So I think they may be right. Find your right screwdriver. You need to match your screwdriver head to the slot in the gear. So I switched off to a different one. It has a little thicker head. I'm going to remove that. That screw can go into my parts tray. And I'm going to remove that gear. And again, you can see with the shellacking and the dried grease on this one that, well, turning this reel may have been because there's a puddle of dried grease on the back end of this one. But look at that. That's a beautiful, beautiful gear. All right. Let's go up top. There's a rotor nut, a retention clip, and a screw to hold that clip on. So that's what we're going to remove next. And quite honestly, right now, what I'm seeing is I may not need that parts reel other than the handle. We're going to find out, but right now, it looks like that's a possibility. All right. Like everything else, there is a screw here that has a Phillips head base, but it's not cooperating, and that would be a shame. We can't break this thing free. There we go. You have to be careful. You don't want to butterfly those slots. If you do, well, you may wind up with a reel that doesn't have this clip on it. So sometimes I'm asked, what's the purpose of that clip? Why did I have it on there? Well, spinning can decouple the rotor nut from the pinion gear, and that could cause the rotor to loosen, and if the rotor loosens, it's going to wobble. If it wobbles, well, it's not going to be effective. Now, point of notice for me, on these BG90s, I've found very few of them that don't wobble. I don't know why that is. I sometimes think it might be in the counterweight of the rotor, but for whatever reason, I find myself in that situation. All right, the nut, the retention ring, and the screw are out. We should be able to pull up and off on that. Same thing here. We've got a lot of dried grease and dirt. So I'll tell you what's going to happen here, and we're going to pause the video at some point. When that other one gets done cleaning, I'm going to put this one in. So we'll see how we do with that. Let's continue. One of the things I've noticed here is that this gear, which has the spring that operates the anti-reverse dog, it's off. So that one just generally does not jump off. So I would say whoever had this reel before probably didn't know that it needs to be set like that, where that rod goes through that. It's an eccentric spring. So now I would bet you if we turn this thing, you're going to crank it, and as you turn back, it's going to set and lock. I'll show you that again. Get my hand out of the way. That's how the eccentric dog and click ratchet work. And we found it like this, with that off to the side, and that won't work that way, right? Won't pull it in. So maybe that's one of the reasons why this one was given up. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove the top end. This is a good place to tell you to take pictures. So you may or may not find the schematic diagram. If you take pictures, you won't have to worry about that. I'm going to use my newly found 20-cent word. Use your image capture device. I like that, saw that somewhere. Whether that's your phone or a traditional camera or your iPad or whatever you might be using to capture images, use that. Take a couple of pictures at critical junctures, and that way if you get stuck, you can go back, reference those pictures, and those pictures, as the old maxim says, kind of worth 1,000 words, right? Notice you got that clip there. It sits on top. It's not part of the gear. What I like to do is just put the screw back in there so that I know the orientation of it. Place that into my parts tray as well. Picture time. Here's your ring with your eccentric spring on it. Here's your collar with your the flat side is facing up on this one. And now we're coming into the last three pieces of this, and those are going to be the screws that are holding the retention collar on for that bearing. Let's see if we can get these off. All of these screws have been very, well, we got sand in this one. That doesn't help either, does it? So I think in addition to giving the that spool a little cleaning, we're going to put this case in for a cleaning, and we're going to put that rotor in for a cleaning. And we're going to kind of have a choppy video as a result because, well, we can use time-lapse photography, I guess. Time-lapse image capture? Does that make sense? I don't know. All right. Here's that last one. And it was hard for me to say that the bearings were or were not working on this one because it was just very, very slow. All right. I don't remember what I paid for this. It was a long time ago, I have to be honest with you. It's been sitting in the bin for, well, I'd be lying if I said it was less than a year. And I think I got it as a bunch of broken reels. Then eventually, somewhere along the line, that second one showed up, and I said, oh, now I got the parts I may need because I just assumed something in this reel was broken. And then, well, that sat there for a while until I just rediscovered it, and I think I made a good rediscovery in the decision to go to work on this one. Let's turn this. Yeah, that bearing's doing fine. All right, we should be able to just pull up and out on this one. We may not, that's a simple word, but there you go. Well, we did. We're able to pull this up and out. And we're going to pause the video here, just as it is. And again, good place to take pictures, because we're going to step away for this for a while. That ultrasonic cleaner takes about 20 minutes. And it looks like I've got two pieces to do. I'm going to do this one. It's not a very large capacity one. I'm going to do the rotor, and I'm going to do the case separately. I could probably just work the case by myself with my hands if I wanted to, but I think for the benefit of this reel, I think what we'll do is we'll just use that separate of that, use both of them, and we'll come back and we'll kind of finish the video and we'll show you the results of that. Okay, so I went to soak the other one, brought this one back out. It did a relatively nice job. We're going to use some cleaner on this next, but I did notice that we started to loosen up on these washers. So let's see what we can do to pull these out now. There's no question that this drag was not working because it's so stuck. If we can get these washers out, we can get this axle shaft off. Should be able to push that down now. Oh boy, that's still tight. Well, I think what we want to do here, I think we got one more washer in there. Maybe that's what's going on here. Yeah, we do. I gotta go pause this video again. Okay, I got my curved one, and I was able to pick out the last two. We can see we got all kinds of dirt and debris and junk still in there. Let's see if, yeah, we got movement. Hooray. And there's some kind of corrosion or something going on here because that should spin easily in here, and that was stuck. So again, there's probably something going on relative to the way that this was stored, or maybe even what happened with it. Well, we're going to put those drag washers aside for a second. Just want to feel what we have here. And you know, this is one of those cases I don't file much. I'm going to grab a flat file here and just run it just to see if I can't knock off whatever that dried grease is or that. Because there's definitely some kind of debris or gunk or something on here for sure. And you can use your fingers to tell you that it's running free and easy or not. I'm going to use a little bit of penetrating oil. Go over to a steel wool, see if I can't polish that up a little bit. And this is a result of sitting. Well, I'm not going to say it's the result of sitting in my shop, even though it's been sitting in my shop for a while. But it was probably sitting in a damp place, maybe a shed. This could have been, quite honestly, a Hurricane Sandy reel from a while ago that affected the New Jersey shore. This one might have gotten swamped, and we might have had salt water in here causing this issue. I'm just not sure. The drag washers themselves seem to be the Teflon ones, so they're not rusted in. That's good. All right, this cleaned up nicely. Let's put that back in here now. There was a washer on the bottom. Let's put that back in here, see if we got a spin now. Oh yeah, now it's doing what it should be doing. That comes out easy enough. All right, good. Let's show you the top end service while we're waiting for that case to get cleaned then. Well, we had the ultrasonic come in. It did a pretty nice job of getting rid of some of the surface stuff. We still have a little bit of junk inside, so I'm going to use a pick to kind of break the corners there. You can see that it's probably salt. Not quite sure what it is. You can see it in there as debris. It's also sitting in that little indentation there that holds it. Now I guess if the other spool was in better condition, I probably could have foregone all of this and just said swap the spools, because I don't think these were stored in similar places or that. But this one's got better cosmetics, so I want to stick with this one. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, maybe you're working on one, maybe you want to know the history of a particular reel, maybe you just found the reels that your dad or your granddad or other family member or friend or somebody we used to fish with, and you kind of want to know something about those reels, or maybe you're stuck. Maybe you're just beside yourself. You didn't take the pictures, or you didn't have an organization plan when you started to service this or any reel, and now you're just plain stuck. That's okay too. Leave a question in there and I'll try and get you unstuck. Right now I'm using a steel wool. I don't like to do that for this, but there's some aggressive salt buildups and scarring on here. I think that's the only way I want to use that to smooth it down. The downside of using this, of course, is it'll dull the surface. So you may want to try iterative steps. You may want to try a kitchen scrubby, for example. That's much less abrasive than a steel wool pad. But whatever it is that you do, just act with caution on that. That's one of the reasons why I use the dish soap as the cleaning agent inside that sonic cleaner, ultrasonic cleaner. And I do that because, well, there's chemicals. You never know which ones are going to affect which type of plating in that. And the last thing you want to do is kind of dull the plating or whatever. Oh, all right. Let's go back to those drag washers then. This is a traditional 6 set of drag washers. The one in the middle appears to be stainless because, well, we don't have any rust or junk or anything on there. That's the eared washer. The other two seem to be, well, probably why they got stuck in there to begin with. I'm going to use that steel wool now and see if we can't polish off whatever it is that's been hanging on there. The steel wool has a little bit of a chrome cleaner on there, which I can't seem to find anymore. It's a turtle wax car chrome cleaner. I guess that's probably because nobody puts chrome on cars anymore. And probably doesn't sell well in the stores, but I've got to find more of that because, well, it's been with me my whole time that I've been servicing fishing reels. And I just, I'm sure there's other answers to it. I know Flitz makes a nice product and some others, but well, old habits die hard, right? All right, I'm going to use that file to see if I can't knock off it. There's another ridge here of some debris that's on there that's rough. Now this is the top washer. You don't have to clean this off, of course, but you know, if you're doing a job, do the job right. Take an extra minute or two, clean that off as best you can. Got one more of these. This was the one that was on the bottom, so we shouldn't see that top corrosion on there that comes with the first dose of salt water. This one should clean up well, and you do need to clean these up, because if you leave any pitting on there, if you leave any debris on there, they're going to eat into the washers, and they're going to destroy the washers over time, particularly if you have a reel that has felt washers in there. This one happens to have Teflon washers, so they'll be a little bit slipperier. But if you have the Teflon ones, you're okay. Felt ones, you better take extra super care to make sure that these are smooth. Again, use your fingers to determine that it's nice and smooth. This one didn't rust because of the material. This one is okay. And of course it has that tarnish up top, but tarnish you can live with. Same thing here, make sure that your Teflon washers don't have any sand or grit or other things on there. Time to change out that paper towel. Use your fingers as the guide again. All right, these are good. Okay, with those done, now we can go reinstall. We'll take our axle shaft. The washer is on here. Axle shaft goes in. Fully seated. And now we take one of the Teflon washers, and you don't oil or anything a Teflon washer. It's non-porous, so oils and that are not going to go in or help in any way. What you do is just make sure that they're clean. They are petroleum products, so they're kind of self-lubricating. That's the first one in. Push them down to the bottom of the cavity. Let's take the second one now. Now this is where the eared washer comes in. The eared washer goes in the middle of the set. And the top washer. And the last of the keyed washers, that's the ones with the rectangular center. Push those down, go back into your parts tray and get the clip that rides in the groove. That was the first thing we took off when we got to this, doing this, and seat that clip just like that. Now if you hold it, your spool should still move because you got a drag stack that's working. As you compress down on the drag stacks, what that's going to do is it's going to push pressure against the metals. The drag washers will seal that up. The ones with the rectangular centers are going to hold the spool. I'm sorry, going to hold the axle shaft. The one in the middle with the two eared slots is going to hold the spool. And it'll immobilize it when you have all of those working in unison. All right, I didn't do a final polishing on this one below, but let's take care of that right now. Same idea, use your fingers to tell you if there's anything that's kind of rough on that and get rid of it. Now take your pinion gear and slide that up and down. This is going to tell you whether you have a bent axle shaft or not. As long as that can spin nice and easy, move up and down, your axle shaft is true, and you don't have to worry that that's the cause of the issue here. We can at this time clean the adjuster button for the drag washer. I use my kitchen scrubby and a little rod and reel cleaner. Take the dirt off of this one. It's all kind of process driven here, right? One thing at a time before you move on to other things. I'm always amazed at folks that kind of start a reel project by taking every piece and part off the reel. Then they lose track of where they were in the process. So if you work on sub-assemblies like this, it's a lot easier, and at the end of the day you have fewer parts to be in control of or aware of, and less taxing in terms of getting that done. All right, that assembly is completed. We'll put that off to the side. I think I just heard the beeps go on the ultrasonic. It runs a bath for about 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do here is one more thing. I'm going to take a bristle brush and some penetrating oil, and we're going to do the same thing we did with that main gear. We're going to take the bristle brush and pull it through, making sure that all of the teeth are clean and that we don't leave any residual behind in terms of dirt. I like to pull that onto a paper towel because that paper towel is going to catch any of the debris and it won't transfer it back into the piece, and it won't transfer it to another reel, because we will get rid of this at the end of the project. There's some dried grease on here. That may be the cause of the poor performance. I'm chipping it out of there. So what we were saying about how gravity works, well, it works with this too. The grease settled on the bottom and it kind of accumulated there, and that definitely will cause poor performance. Do the same thing. I'm going to pull up. I don't see the dried grease on the upside, so we'll just pull through on that. One more spray of the penetrating oil is kind of a rinse. Grab that brush one more time, pull it through. All right, we got a nice solid piece of probably stainless. Again, this is the reason why this reel is so good. We're going to set that aside for a moment and go back and get the case so that we can continue with the rebuild of this reel. Okay, the case is cleaned up beautifully, and gee, the only thing that you see is some residue on here, and what I would recommend for that is what we just did before. We used the rod and reel cleaner. Let's just use that again, but no sand there, no sand underneath. Let's just clean that up to that gunmetal kind of finish that it had there. And what I want to do with this one, I did use dish detergent that is going to dissolve oils, so I want to put some oil into the seam of the bail and put a little bit on this spot here. That's just a dead end, but just make sure your bail turns nice and easily. This is what it's going to be I call them hammer bails. There are no springs, there are no trip levers. It's going to hit the back of the case and trip, so that one's in pretty good condition. We have our 3-ball bearings, so let's go ahead and put some oil on those. Please, when you're working on your fishing reels, use fishing reel oils and greases. I've found all kinds of things inside fishing reels over the time, and the most dependable is the fishing reel oils and greases. So please don't compromise all the good work you're doing in terms of cleaning it up and getting it ready to go fishing, only to find out that you put an inferior grease in there that's going to evaporate or clog or congeal or other things in marine situations because it wasn't designed for that. All right, I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease for this, for those of you that are wondering. I'm going to get a good amount on there because we know there hasn't been greases on there. Take the bearing that I just oiled, put that back onto the shaft here. We can insert the shaft into the case, and then we can get that carrier. Again, this is where pictures are going to help you. Because you're going to need to line them up, and that's how this one lines up. Okay, we basically loaded up the bottom of the case, but we need to finish the top end before we can put that rotor on. So the next piece in then was the click ratchet piece. That seats on there like this. And then we want to bring in our anti-reverse dog. Now that should sit right on top there. Bring in our anti-reverse dog nut. This has got a collar on it, so you need to make sure that as you put this screw down, you don't trap the dog, but rather have the dog's collar ride on it and just let it go on. Now I'm going to put a drop of oil there. We can continue tightening this down. And one of the things I did notice when I took this out of the case was that this anti-reverse override arm is not functioning. So don't do anything with it. Don't try to pry it. Don't try to move anything. Just accept that it's frozen in the case, and that's one of the consequences of this being an old reel that sat idle for a long time. You can break it off, I guess, and go find another case and another one of those if that works. But for now, I'm just going to leave that as it is. This is your eccentric piece now. Make sure that the wire goes into that arm. And now we can grab the rotor, which we've cleaned. We've put a little bit of oil onto the seams. It's nice and clean underneath. We can go ahead and put that on now. Rotor nut is next. Tighten that by hand to start because you want to make sure that you are not stripping it. And then line that flat side of the nut perpendicular to the hole. And generally speaking, you should be able to put that retention cap on, having aligned the hole. My luck, my battery pack ran out, so I'm thinking that I know where I am when I heard it chirp, and I just put the retention collar onto the nut and make sure that the hole for the tie-down screw is aligned with the hole in the rotor, and we'll attach that now. Oh, we're getting closer. Okay, next up then we want to take our axle shaft that's been rebuilt, just a light coating of grease onto the shaft. Anything more than that's just going to scrape off when you put it through the pinion gear. This is the side that's going to face forward. Bring it in like this. Bring it down. Hold that crosswind block down there. And you want to merge that in. Make sure that you bring that all the way down so that the threads of the retention screw match the threads of the axle shaft. And then we can tighten that up. And I'm starting to get excited here because this is a project that's been laying around as a to-do for a long period of time. And I think we're actually going to give this one a second chance. All right, we have our side plate bearing. We can put that in either way. Put it in the case and mount it, or take it and put it on the axle shaft. I'll put it in the case. And put a little bit of grease onto that, where it's going to run on the inner race of the bearing. Go ahead and put this over. Go get our 3 screws. And we're getting very close to seeing if this reel can run again. So the only thing that's going to be a flaw in this reel is that the anti-reverse override will not work. And I don't know, if I put it on my desk and say I'll do it one of these days, it'll be there for another year. So I think maybe what we'll do is we'll just accept that that's not going to work. And put some line on this one, get it ready for the fall striped bass season here in New Jersey. It's a beautiful reel. It's going to be nice on a 10-foot surf pole. It will continue to catch a lot of fish for a long time to come. Okay, those are the 3 side plate screws. Make sure they're nice and tight. now we said we're going to swap out the handles because, well, this one's better cosmetically. So let's remove this one. Thank goodness for Henry Ford and the idea of interchangeable parts. Where would we be without them? We'd be with 2 broken reels. Maybe 1 broken reel, but it has a lousy looking handle. All right, we'll tighten that up. Let's bring that over to the other reel. Bring that in. Remember what we said, there was a little retention piece. I left the other screw in this handle here, so let's take that out. It's always good to know where you leave them. Put that onto the clip. Let's get the clip into the slot. Tighten this down, put a cap on, give it a test. Wow, for those of you still sticking with me, thanks for watching. This one's kind of a labor of love here. As I mentioned, it's been sitting around for some time. And I was just thinking to myself the other day, when I saw these kind of in the to-be-fixed bin that has no urgency to it whatsoever, I just was thinking these would be great surf reels. Let's see if we can do one of these for the fall. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to share it as a video as well? So that's how all of this came into being. We've learned a lot of things about this. We learned that it was a dry grease situation, not an over grease situation. We saw that the spool up top was totally seized. The drag washers were no good in it. And we were able to rectify that. We were able to re-grease. There may be an issue with that top bearing. If it makes a little bit of noise, I may, after the striper season run, maybe what I'll do is I'll take the time, go order a replacement bearing, take the axle shaft on this one out, not the axle shaft, the shaft for the anti-reverse drive. Take that one out of here and see if we can get it. Yeah, this one seems to be turning, and maybe I'll just fully restore it. We'll see. Let's right now let's see if it's working, because we know, well, it wasn't working very well earlier. We did get a little bit of turn, but not a lot. All right, let's put that off to the side, put that back into my parts bin. Here we go. Look at that. So we're just having a conversation in the forum on the BG60. I've never met a BG90 without a top end wobble. This one's not terrible, but it does have a top end wobble to it. And that's a function of those bales. And I think a little bit maybe a function of the counterweight. All right, let's make sure that bale trips. That's got that hammer. It's going to hit the side here. When this comes around, it will hit that side. And as you continue to spool, it's going to jump it up. There you go. Well, I got a functioning reel again. That's pretty exciting. All right, that's how you take apart, service, diagnose, clean up, and make one reel work by using the parts of another reel. So I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. Truly appreciate your life choices and your dedication to task. To everybody, well, it's, as I mentioned, there's one more run coming before we pack it in for the year. It's going to be the fall striped bass. I don't know your situation, where you are, and what your last run may be, or before it gets too cold, what it is that you're searching for. But make sure that you keep your reels tuned up, ready to go, so when the fish are biting, you just need to grab your pole and get to your favorite fishing spot and start landing them. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.